Well, we've certainly got some very interesting weather over the next several days, and it may linger into the best part of next week as well. Thanks for clicking on to the Friday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Just the other night there, the temperature hit 13.1 Celsius here at the house. That's actually the warmest temperature of the entire month. And also on the same night, the wind actually was the strongest since back during a storm in February. So quite interesting weather. And now we of course are seeing the cold coming south here. This is the snow cover difference. This was back on the 12th of October, and you can see quite a minuscule amount of snow over the high latitude region. Look at the difference now as of the 24th or 23rd, in fact, of November. And we have got a significant amount of snow now that we are a little bit lacking over parts of southern British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan. You can see here the bare ground. But look at across Russia. You would typically expect to see Russia now starting to really fill out, but you can see into northeastern China, much of in Mongolia, but also Scandinavia has a significant amount of snow cover. The majority of Scandinavia is now covered in snow, and of course, when that happens, we have a world of cold conditions across the northern hemisphere. So you expand the snow cover, you increase the expansion of cold and the intensity of cold as well. But we certainly have got some very interesting things going on at the moment here, and you can see here, if you look at the GFS, this is the 850 millibar temperatures over the northern hemisphere, and we've got three areas of interest. Notice the pool of coldest air anywhere in the northern hemisphere over eastern Siberia at the moment. We also see that extension across and into North America, but also equally colder out of Greenland, extending south into the UK, also across Scandinavia as well. So you've got this kind of tripole, if you will, of cold over the main industrial centres of the world at the moment. So quite interesting to see that for the end of November. And like I said, when you increase the snow, you increase the cold as well. And the pattern is certainly conducive. This is the Arctic Oscillation seen by the GFS ensemble. You can see here the black line was positive. We are heading negative, and equally the North Atlantic Oscillation going from positive to negative as we move into the latter stages of November, early December here. I will show you in just a second the reasons why I think we're going to see a pullout of this cold air, despite the fact that the models have increased the cold for longer next week. Very interesting scenario. We've got areas of low pressure trying to move it in from the Atlantic. We've got, of course, a dam, a growing dam, if you will, of cold across the UK, north of it, both up towards Greenland and up towards Scandinavia. That cold is trying to push southwards, but all the while we're seeing Atlantic weather trying to move in from a west to southwesterly direction. So the UK, as is often the case, is in the battleground between the competing air masses here. What one will win out? There is still some uncertainty with regards to how much influence the Atlantic may have versus the Arctic and polar air. So it's certainly going to be very interesting as we move, particularly through the weekend. I think it's going to be relatively quiet over the weekend. We will have a frontal system introducing something a little bit milder from the west, but all the while we've got an area of high pressure that will settle the winds down. The strongest of winds will then transfer and focus over the North Sea. So we're going to lose that northerly wind, and the air mass itself will actually moderate some as that area of high pressure kind of topples its way in. But it will, under clear skies, light winds, we will see a widespread frost. Now, I believe -7 was achieved back last week or during the early portion of this work week. And what may happen is we may rival that temperature as we go through the next several nights here under clear skies and light winds. There will be variable wind and cloud cover that will, of course, dictate the temperature as well here. But before we go into any more details with regards to snow and how cold it's going to be, let's have a look at the bigger picture here, because this is what I want to show you. Look at the North America, right? This is the the 500 millibar geopotential heights. This is the upcoming week of the CFSV2. Notice here we've got the big positive over the North Atlantic. We've also got a positive up the western side of North America as well. Trough underneath and to the east as well. Week 2, you notice here that we start to see the continuation of these height rises over the northern half of North America here. Also notice that we have a trough now starting to show up over the far east of Russia and into Alaska here. That then actually essentially forces the high to shift westwards towards Greenland, so therefore it will open the door to colder weather, and this of course is the scenario 30th of November through the 7th of December here. So what's happening over North America and over the Arctic region is then going to essentially dictate the type of pattern that we see. We're going to start to see the colder, the core of the cold, possibly shift a little bit further west over Europe here in response to what's happening over North America. But I think this is the game changer in terms of the break in the cold pattern for the UK and Ireland. Is notice here that we have that area of low pressure then starting to sink into the North Pacific. We raise the heights over northwest North America. In turn, there's the cold trough now shifted into the eastern half of the United States. But in turn, what may happen is this pulls that area of high pressure westwards towards the Baffin Straits here, and in turn you're starting to open the door over the eastern portion of the North Atlantic here. So let's have a look and see what Europe is suggesting here, and I've got another reason why I think it's going to happen in just a second. I'll explain that. Look at here, week 1. So you've got, of course, the big battle between high pressure to the west of the UK and Ireland. Big deep negative here over Central and Eastern Europe. Very cold conditions in response. Then things get more interesting in the next week as we see that area of high pressure shift further west. Then that pulls the cold pool westwards with it. And then certainly the UK is in the cold pattern proper. So we're kind of flirting with the cold, if you will, over the next several days and through the weekend here. A bit of a tease of low pressure trying to push milder air in off the Atlantic. But with this shift of high pressure out over the Atlantic, then that forces areas of low pressure to then shift southwards. And as the areas of low pressure shift south, it then opens the door to the east here. But watch this space. As we move from week 2 into week 3, we've got more of a negative here over the UK, Ireland, and northern portions of Europe here. Why is that the case? That could be attributed to what's going on over the Indian Ocean here. So if we look at the pattern here, if I can get the right chart, it would certainly help. Here's the reason. So you notice here that we are now progressing into phase 2, into phase 3 as we move towards the month of December. Then it does head into the null phase, which is, of course, a little bit more of an inactive phase. But nonetheless, it is in phases 4 by the time we reach the end of week 1 of December here. And that in turn could then lead to increased cold over eastern North America, but also fires up the Atlantic jet stream, and then that therefore tries to push mild air in. Now, I could be barking up the wrong tree here. We may still have cold lingering in the pattern, but I find it very interesting nonetheless that the Arctic oscillation is going negative, yes. The NAO is going negative also, but there is shifts in the pattern if you look down towards the tropics, and I think this is what is going to give, not only it gave the pattern, but it's going to essentially take it away. Because if you notice here, if we go to this chart, this correlates to the phases of the MJO. So phase 2 still shows high over Iceland, low over Europe here, and essentially that is what we're seeing at the moment, and we're going to see. But as that enhanced convection, enhanced stage of the MJO continues to push eastwards over the Indian Ocean, then that eventually in turn leads to more of a positive NAO and mild unsettled conditions, with Atlantic driving the pattern here. So it's all to play for. I think towards the end of week 1 of December, we're going to start to see the cold retreat and the Atlantic coming back into play once again. But that does not mean that we're ending the potential of cold for further down the road. Of course, we know what's going on within the stratosphere. I have already explained that in recent videos, that needs to continue to progress. And of course, a lot of the long-range models increase the potential for blocking. Now, it is also quite interesting here, folks. If we look at the NAO in particular, it has been predominantly negative. Now, there has been spells where it has been positive. During the first 10 days of September, of course, we had record-breaking warm conditions for the UK here. Then we've seen it going negative. Now, we have seen it going back positive once again. I believe we'll see the negative going back to positive once again in the early portions, possibly even the mid portions of December, and then repeating patterns then come back into play once again. I think we're going to go back negative once again as we go towards the end of the year, and more than likely into the early portions of 2024. So yeah, it's an interesting, very interesting situation. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, by the way, if you haven't already done so, and you're interested in meteorology, interested in understanding how a certain pattern evolves. I certainly will try my best to explain that here on markvoganweather.com on YouTube here. Remember, coming up next Thursday, winter forecast will be released on markvoganweather.com. I will have an in-depth explanation as to what my thoughts really are with regards to the winter. I think there'll be a few interesting little twists and turns with regards to the overall ideas. So stay tuned for that. So taking a look at the 850 temperatures a little bit more locally here. So this is the northwest of Europe. And of course, in comes the Arctic air into the pattern. As you can see, it's a somewhat glancing blow for the UK. Ireland and Northern Ireland largely missing out in that cold air. But as we push towards the late Saturday into early Sunday time frame, there's that area of low pressure nudging its way in from the west. It kind of essentially pushes temporarily that air, the cold air, out into the North Sea. But then as that low sinks south, it then opens the door. You notice here there's a couple of little embedded features within the flow as well. Skip back just a wee frame here. You can see that there, that we've got a little micro area of low pressure here just to the east of Shetland. The main centre of the low then digs south, but you notice here that as that area of low pressure moves south, we've got cold air moving in both from the Atlantic, but as well as that across Scandinavia, where the core of the coldest air is. And then in comes more cold air. Notice here there is embedded warmer air within the overall situation. There's another area of low pressure at 990 millibars moving towards southwestern England. So again, another temporary surge of milder air coming in. Notice what happens. We've got this continuous battle between the warm and the cold, but it looks as if as we move towards the period mid to late week, according to these latest runs anyway, we have got another area of low pressure. This could be a potential snowmaker, by the way, if this was to remotely happen. But look at the core of the coldest air now starting to shift into the UK around that area of low pressure. So let's have a look and see finally at the snow prospects of the model, and we'll have a look and see what they're showing. So certainly we've got some very interesting scenarios coming up. Now you can see here the amount of snow cover across a good swathe of Central Europe and eastwards, trying to move towards the Low Countries and even the UK. Higher ground parts of Northern Ireland may see something in and around the eastern, hilly areas around the Dublin area, North Wales, North England, and higher ground of Scotland here. There is snow expected to fall here. So we will watch and see what happens there as we move towards Thursday the 7th of December. A very long way out, of course. But you can see even snow across parts of South Wales and southern England. So lots of things to contend with. Keep it right here on markvoganweather.com on YouTube. And be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And also remember to hit the bell for the notifications of each upload also. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and I'll hopefully be back again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.